Hey, Josie with Queen My Pawn. Today we're going to learn a game from Mikhail Chigorin, who was actually going to be world champion if it wasn't for Steinitz, because he lost his Steinitz twice in the contest. So this is a game which Chigorin played in 1874, 3 years after Steinitz became champion. So we could still say that he was kind of a master still. Chigorin. This is Chigorin. And the game started e4, e5, knight of 3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, castles, which is obviously a bit too early, knight of 6, and that's the book, but you don't need to know any of that. Oh, that's the computer, which I misclicked. I'm going to turn that off. So d3, d6, bishop g5. So that's the pin on the knight, but there are two problems with this, which I've already discussed in my previous video, that he's pinning the knight too early, and it's not very effective because the king is not castled yet on the king side. So if black had a capture back on f6 with the pawn, for example, queen d7, pawn takes bishop after the bishop captures the knight, this isn't a problem for black because black can still castle queenside where it looks a lot safer, and black has an open g file where he could aim to the king. So it's not dangerous. Obviously, queen e7 is not the move. So I'm going to delete from here. And after bishop g5, Chigorin asks, what are you really going to do with that bishop? And we all know the value of the bishop here. I find this still to be a strange move from Chigorin because he liked knights. So after bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, Chigorin probably said to himself that he has more pieces developed. And the queen on f6 is powerful because it can't be chased away. For example, knight c3, bishop to e6, knight d5. At this point, black can still play queen d8 if he wants, but after something like bishop takes knight, and either the bishop capture, which is probably stronger, I would say black is fine because now he can even castle kingside. And the game is equal. It's an opposite colored bishop game too, which is a drawish way to continue. But they wanted something more exciting. And instead of bishop takes f6, they played bishop h4. So his opponent was V. Norre. I don't know what his first name is. So the king is castled, and our king is not, but we can still play g5. And now bishop g3. So we can even set our own pin now with bishop g4, which is what I would recommend. But Chigorin tries an interesting idea here. He plays h5. He's trying to trap the bishop. Now, here's the thing. Chigorin calculated that after knight takes pawn, threatening knight takes f7, forking the rook and the queen, he was going to be okay. Can you figure out why? I'll give you 3 seconds to pause the video and figure it out. So this is obviously a complex position after knight takes g5, because that knight's going to hop in and fork. But this is a common theme in the Giuoco piano, is this bishop aiming at the king and pinning, which makes captures on g3 possible. For example, just for example, obviously this is not how the game will continue, but just for example, the pawn could take back, and the pawn on f2 wouldn't capture back because it's illegal. The pawn is pinned, Obviously, this is not how the game would continue. Now, they could break the pin, but, you know. Anyways, this isn't how the game's going to continue. But it's a common theme to notice this pin. So, and Steinitz saw this game because he used the same moves in a later match. But it turns out that the defense was in h4. And obviously this wouldn't be ideal for black. The pawn is blocked and he's still pinned, and even worse than before because now the knight's not protected, so he has to play something like this. But that gives the initiative, and so that gives white a free move to act. So he would probably play h4, or if he wants to complicate the position still, bishop g4. So it gets complicated. So Noria just takes the free knight, the free pawn. Why not, right? Here's why. After h4, knight takes f7, the fireworks start to pop off. You should have calculated that in this variation, h takes g3 is a disastrous move. After knight takes d8, bishop g4. Now the bishop comes into the game with initiative. The queen has almost nowhere to run. Queen d2 seems to be like the best move, but I think queen e1 would be the same, because now the next move that is going to bring in just utter chaos is knight to f3. So to get there, you have to play knight d4 first. See the fork? If a knight gets to f3, it forks the king and the queen, except that there's a pawn in the way, which the bishop on g4 is going to take advantage of. And the bishop could go to f3, finally, with a rook on h1. Now, the problem is we haven't taken care of the h2 pawn yet. But he cannot capture back because of the checkmate I just showed you. And we can still capture this with check, and then it'll be checkmate. So he's toast after knight d4. So white thought, oh, he's just going to try to do knight e2, king h1, and then rook takes h2, checkmate. Oh, that's so defendable. Let me just play knight c3. Well, that doesn't meet the threat of knight f3, which I just discussed. This is terrible. He cannot run because of the Arabian mate, rook takes h2. And he must capture. And now it's going to be checkmate because I just said so. So at this point, his opponent resigns. And notice the position, though. Black doesn't have a queen. Let's see. Let's calculate the material because this is just funny. We're up a bishop. We're up a, let's see, pawns. Actually, we're not up a bishop because they're up a knight. So bishop for knight. So the minor pieces are equal. We're down a whole queen. We're just down a whole queen. Like, this is ridiculous. We sacrificed an entire queen, but we got the king. So that's the way that chess works.